Yeah, that is a good question. How are you so amazing, A, and B, how did you show your amazingness by continuing to work during the pandemic, which is still going on? Anybody?
Well, I can tell you that writing in the pandemic was really, really, in the pandemic that we're still in, I guess, was really hard for me. Like I was trying to write, I was working from home, but then also trying to write, and really got lost in the hours and lost in my story and lost in my head. And the only thing that really saved me was working with other writers online and doing like word sprints with other writers. Like my whole saving grace really was other writers who were willing to either Zoom with me or, check in with me, and we'd do word counts together, things like that. It was really difficult. I'm hoping this next year is not this difficult, but I had a really hard time.
Yeah. Well, the amazingness took me years of training. But for writing during the pandemic, yeah, a lot of word sprints definitely helped. On the bright side, it gave me an excuse to just stay home and do more writing, though. I did appreciate that.
Yeah. AC?
Yeah, I think since so many of us read to escape, it's also possible to write to escape, or, that's going on at the same time. And that was the case for me. I don't want to say it was easy to write, because it certainly wasn't, but it was somehow good to write, to just get off into the world where none of that existed and be totally immersed in the characters and the story that I was working on. That was really helpful to me in a lot of ways.
Right.
For me, before the pandemic, there was this great coffee place not far from my house that I would take my laptop to, and that I was one of our fellow writers, Catherine Mayorisi, who was in my neighborhood, introduced me to, and I would go there and write. And it felt good to go there. And then, of course, the pandemic came, and that wasn't an option anymore. And the other thing was that I was working from home, so with my laptop from work. So work kind of took over the space that was where I would write, and it just didn't work for me. But then I was able to join this fabulous writing group that JC is a member of as well. And that gave me some structure twice a week to talk with other writers and to spend some time writing. And that really helped. And then when the summer came, I was able to go to the beach. We have a place at the beach, and use that as a place to write, because it wasn't as much, confused with work. So it's been slow going, but it's moving along now.
Right. Rachel, how about you?
Well, Meredith reminded me with the word sprints of one of my favorite productivity tools that came out of the pandemic and the coding community. If you've heard of the Pomodoro, it's 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. The pandemic has given us the reverse Pomodoro, 5 minutes on, 25 minutes off. Actually works, actually very useful for getting started. So that, and then, I just started teaching college a year and a half ago. So teaching creative writing really makes me feel like I better be writing something. So I just do the exercises that I have the students do, and things get done. And while I'm talking, I'm going to say, I'd love to hear about what everyone's projects are that you're working on now, like what's coming up from everybody. If I may sneak a question in.
You may. Go ahead. JC, you want to start? You're up
Sure.
at the top of my screen here.
Yeah, I'm working on a novel that tentatively titled The Perfect Fifth, and it references the interval in music that in Western music is considered the most pleasing, between the first twinkle and the second twinkle, and Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is a perfect fifth, or second, third. And it's also my fifth book, so I'm hoping it'll be perfect. So that's what I'm looking at.
Great. Cindy, how about you?
I'm working on the second part of the paper, of the Split series. I'm not quite sure what the title is yet, but I'm halfway through the first draft of it. And I'm hoping to, the idea of a word sprint feels a little intimidating. So I'd like to sprint through it for the rest of the summer, but we'll see how that goes. But, it's pretty much moving along. But that's what I'm doing.
Great. Genevieve?
Well, I have the manuscript for Cold Blood due in 2 days, so I suppose that's what I'm working on. It's my second ever vampire novel. It's kind of a neo-Western revenge thriller, but still a lesbian romance, obviously. I'm really excited for it. It was just so much fun to write. I always love vampires, and just getting to write something a lot more. It's in the same world, but it's a lot more action focused and more direct, and from somebody who isn't as much part of the community's perspective. So it really changes a lot of things.
Right. Cool. Rachel?
Well, I'm working on at least one, possibly two young adult novels, but I don't want to talk about them because I'm afraid I'll jinx it. But the thing I can talk about is I'm also co-authoring a incredibly queer webcomic adaptation of The Great Gatsby.
Wow.
Yes, that will be out probably in January. So round about September, I'll start promoting it online. But yes, it's incredibly, incredibly gay. We've been calling it The Gayest Gatsby.
I would read that. Meredith?
I have a new book coming out in March called Whereabouts Unknown, and it's separate from the series. It's a standalone, and it's a police procedural about two missing teens that snowballs into quite something more. It also takes a look at disability and how disability comes into play in like the cop world and all of those kinds of things as well too.